If I were to learn computer science from scratch today, how would I do it? How would I structure my learning so that I can maximize my productivity and learn all the things that I need in order to be a successful software engineer? That is our topic of conversation for today. Okay, so the first thing here is programming language. That, I think, is the most important thing, and you want to pick a language that is commonly used and commonly understood. And for this reason, I'm going to have several options here. There's something called Java, right? Really popular. A lot of people use it, and it's been in the industry for quite some time. There's also C or C++. Okay, that's also another popular option. It's a little bit harder to understand, especially for beginners, so I don't really recommend that. Another popular option is called JavaScript, right? JavaScript is great for a lot of people because you can play around on your browser and you can try that out really easily. And the last one here is called Python. Okay, obviously there are a lot of other languages out there that I haven't mentioned yet, like Haskell, right? Pascal, Swift, right? For iOS programming. But let's not get into that, right? I'm tackling this from a perspective of if you're a beginner and you're learning something from scratch today, what should you do? What should you pick? Okay? Any of these options, Java, C++, JavaScript, Python, any of these are going to be a great option to start for a beginner. And my personal recommendation here is Python. Okay, the reason I picked Python is because one, it's really easy to understand. It reads like English, so it really lowers that barrier of entry for a lot of people, because if you've used English and you understand the language well, Python is going to come as this sort of second nature for a lot of people. Java, C++, these are not really good options for beginners because the syntax itself is a little bit more complicated. Not that they're a bad option, so to speak, but the barrier for entry for a lot of people are going to be a lot higher for Java and C++ because it doesn't read as naturally as English, and there are some nuances about the language itself, especially in C++ and C, where you have to manage the memory and you have to allocate, deallocate, things like that, it doesn't lend itself really well for beginners. But Python, JavaScript, these are actually both really good languages to start with. Once you've kind of learned them, it's going to be really easy to transition right into Java and C++ if that is something that you want to get into. Pascal, Haskell, Swift, all these other options out there, I would recommend skipping them or avoiding them for now because one, they're pretty niche, right, in what they're able to do. And like Swift, for example, is specifically for iOS programming, and Haskell and Pascal, these are, I think they're more of a academic type of language. Of course, don't take my word for it, but in my professional career as a software engineer, I haven't used Haskell or Pascal as much. There are also other things like PHP, but I would just avoid that for now. All right, moving on. So once you've picked a language, right, what is the second thing that you need to learn? I would say pick a resource. Get a book on that programming language, right? Get a book that's really going to teach you the basics of how to use the language properly. The way I like to think about becoming a software engineer is you're becoming a builder, right? You're using your bare hands and you have some tools that's going to help you build. And let's say you want to build a house, right? Maybe building an app, it's like building a house. In order to build that house, first, you need to have the right tools. Okay, so learning how to use your tools really well, that's going to help you speed up the process of building that house that you want. So Python, again, the language here is your tool. Tool is going to be Python. So once you've picked a tool to start with, you want to learn the ins and outs of the language really well. So what does that mean to understand the ins and outs of the language? You want to understand, one, the syntax, right, of the language itself. You're going to see a lot in code like if x equals to 1, do something, right? What this means is that's the syntax of the language, how it operates, how to write a program that works in Python. Okay, you need to understand the syntax. You need to understand some of the constructs, right? Construct. So you need to understand the constructs of the language. You need to understand in what cases how you can open and close files, right? So you can operate on files. You want to understand how you can hit an endpoint, right? Or a URL, right? So let's say you want to go to google.com and you want to build a simple scraper, right? So you want to go to google.com that has all these different things on there. It has images, it has text, right? You want to be able to use a simple Python script, for example, to go to this endpoint, okay, or go to this website, get all the things that are within the page, put them into your local computer, okay, and then do something with the with that page. Maybe you want to store the images onto Dropbox, right? And then you want to process the text and store it into a database, for example. So learn the syntax well, learn the language well. I'm going to include some links to resources that I think are going to be great here for you to learn how to program in Python or maybe any other language as well, right? I'm going to include them in the link below, in the description below. Go check them out and leave a comment. Maybe there are more resources that you would really like. Maybe I can review them and determine if that's good for you as a beginner. Okay, so check that out in the comments below. The next thing is try to pick a simple side project, right? Something small, something easy, right? You don't want to get too complex. You don't want to build Rome in a single day, right? Like that's not the goal here. The goal here is, okay, without exposing yourself to a lot of risk, a lot of time investment, maybe you can start with something really small. You don't want to build a house like this huge massive mansion right away, right? Because that is, again, not setting you up for success. Try to build something smaller. Maybe try to build a chair first, right? Build a chair, okay? Don't start by building a house. Build a chair first. It doesn't have to be exactly a week, right? It could be, one weekend, if that's fine. It could even be one day, right? The whole goal of doing this is to expose you to identifying something that you're really interested in, and then using the language itself to start building that thing, because that's going to get you into that muscle memory. It's going to get you into that rhythm of using the tools to build the things that you want. Okay, so some good ideas of a side project here is one. So some ideas of building some good side projects are, building a to-do list, right? You're going to see a lot of those on YouTube, and those are great places to start because it exposes you to the language. It gives you an idea of what it's like to build a website. So I think that's pretty important. So to-do list is a great start. Second thing is you can also build a diary application, right? It's super simple. All it does is it takes in some text, right? Hi diary, and then it stores it into some database, right? And that's all it does. Maybe you don't even need to store that in a database. You can just store it as a text file on your computer. Okay, so this is a great start because you can probably build this in like maybe a day or two, and it's a great start just to build something, get your hands dirty. Third thing is, and the third thing that could be a good start here is building a simple game, right? Using Python, you can build something as simple as like a tic-tac-toe, right? Tic-tac-toe, right? So tic-tac-toe is basically this game. If you haven't played that before, it's basically you have X's and O's, and then two players can take turns. They can on this like 3x3 square. So building something like this, like a tic-tac-toe game, it's maybe gonna take you one day, a couple of days again, right? It's a simple project. You can also go crazy on this and build this on the website, and you can make it into multiplayer, all that good stuff. But you can even start from something called a terminal, right? So on a Mac, we have something called a terminal, which allows you to run your code. Okay. So on terminal, you can just kind of display something using, text, right? Just kind of display something like this. And then each square, right? It's gonna be a number. It could be like 1, 2, 3, and 4. and you can have your code prompting at each time and say like, okay, do you want to insert into 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and then the code's going to take that and then insert your piece into that corresponding space on the game. Okay, so I'm just giving you some examples here to lower that complexity. It doesn't have to be full-fledged. It doesn't have to be, something really polished, right? One thing I really want to call out here is perfect is the enemy of good. Right? I really like this line. And what this whole idea here is essentially that aiming for perfection, right? A lot of people are aiming for perfection, and they think that their software is not good enough. They think that the UI could be a lot more polished. They think that the game logic could be a lot better. All this stuff are actually stopping you from shipping the product or shipping that feature. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's super important here, because as a beginner, you want to start having and build that momentum of getting your hands dirty, because that is how you're going to learn how to write software. If you always are so focused on shipping something that's perfect and you never actually get it out the door because you think that there are some things that could be improved, then that means you're not getting the feedback that you need in order to grow. Okay, so perfect is the enemy of good. Don't focus too much on perfection, focus on getting things done. We've covered several things so far, and if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button if you like this type of content and the format I'm presenting here, because that really helps me with my YouTube channel. It's going to really help me. It's going to give me a lot of motivation to keep creating these types of content. Now, if you have gotten to this point, right, and you've learned a language well, you've picked Python, you've kind of read the book, right, read some books on this, and you've built several side projects, so maybe you've built an API, you've built a diary application, and you're thinking, okay, I've built several things, I'm ready now for the next level. What do I do next? The next thing I'm really going to recommend here is getting a book on data structures and algorithms. Okay, a lot of people are going to say, oh no, what is this? I don't need this stuff. I'm just building a diary. What sort of data structures do I really need? Now, you might be really surprised here, right? I think data structures and algorithms, this forms the foundation of computer science, right? Without data structures and algorithms, there's no way we can build something like Google that is so good at indexing the entire internet, right? There's some brute force way of doing it, which is going to take forever. And without data structures and algorithms, you won't even be able to build Google that has all these relevant results popping up as soon as you type something like, how do I learn data structures, right? How is it going to figure out, okay, what articles are relevant to this? Like, are these tutorials? Are these like movies about this? Like, what does that even mean, right? You need algorithms, you need data structures in order to make a optimal decision in coming out with the results. Okay, and so that's one, right? It's important in terms of expanding your foundation, right? So I think that's super important. And number two, which for a lot of job seekers out there, now a lot of people, they might want to start their own startup, which is perfectly fine. That kind of falls into this first group, right? It's going to expand your foundation. It's going to help you understand computer science. But for a lot of people who are not looking to start their own company and they're looking for a stable income, they're trying to join a company that's able to provide them while they keep their programming careers, they want to find a job. And that's where I have a lot of experience in, because I've worked at startups, I've worked at large companies like Twitter. And for a lot of these companies, when you go through an interview process, right, they're going to focus on asking questions related to data structures and algorithms. Okay, in addition to other things about your projects. Right? So if you've built side projects, then you're done on the project side. You're covered on that end. But when it comes to data structures and algorithms, unless you have a solid foundation in this area, you're not going to pass the interview. Okay? So that's why I recommend Spend some time learning data structures and algorithms. What are arrays? What are linked lists? What are hash maps? How those are being built from the ground up. That's going to go a really long way. And also learn about time and space complexity. Okay, time and space complexity. What does O of n mean? What does O of 1 mean? What does O of log n mean? Right? The whole idea here is that not just learning what these things are, but why are these things important? It gives you a shared understanding of language to how you can communicate performance, right, of your program. That's the most important thing. How do you communicate performance? And that's usually how you evaluate the performance of your program from a time and space complexity perspective. All right. So again, I'm going to leave some links to great books that I think are useful for people to start learning about data structures and algorithms. All of this knowledge are available to you. You can go on Amazon, you can go on GitHub. There are a lot of people started writing about data structures and algorithms. Go pick one or two, learn them, and make sure that you fully understand what arrays and binary trees are, and understanding the performance characteristics of these data structures. Okay. And I would love it if you could leave a comment on maybe a data structure that you really struggle with learning, or something that you want to understand more about. And I would love to make a follow-up video to that. So leave a comment below. Tell me what sort of data structures, what sort of algorithms you're trying to understand or learn more about, and then I will make a video about that. Fifth, final piece of this puzzle of how to be a software engineer is find a community. Okay, find a community. And I think this is really important, and I wish that I had this when I was learning to code. Okay, learning to be a software engineer, learning computer science, it's very lonely if you're doing it by yourself, and it's hard, right? If you're doing something that is hard plus lonely, okay, you're playing the game at God mode, right? You just make this game extremely hard for yourself. Don't make this game extremely hard for yourself. Okay, try to remove these bottlenecks. Find a community that's going to help you with the loneliness part. It's going to help you with the hard part. If you don't understand something, right? If there's a concept that you're struggling with, or if there's a project that you're working on and you don't really know how to build something, find that community, post questions on there. Ask them, build some relationships with people, ideally people who have been in your footsteps, or people who are doing the same exact thing that you are. Okay. The great thing about computer science and software engineering in general right now is that a lot of people really want to get into these fields because of the prestige, because of the money, all that good stuff. And what that means is that you have large communities of people, right, that are in this together. They're trying to learn software engineering. They're trying to learn data structures and algorithms, and they're able to help you when you struggle with these problems, because more often than not, they probably have seen the problems that you struggle with, or even if it's something novel, it's something new, you guys can come together and try to solve it out. And that knowledge that you've gained, you can spread that to the next generation of people, right? Anyone who's trying to join here, they can learn from your past experiences, and that's going to help them get better and be a better software engineer, right? So, and I've also been in this space where trying to learn something new on my own, it just wasn't really productive, okay? Because it's super lonely, right? When you're trying to tackle something that's hard, it's very lonely. So when it's lonely, the important thing here is that you could lose the momentum, okay? Maybe the first time you did it, it's like, okay, it's pretty hard. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to think about it tomorrow. Once that gets started, it becomes this rolling ball down a hill, okay? First time you do it, okay, I'm going to think about it tomorrow. Next time it happens, I'm going to think about it tomorrow. And by the time you realize at the end of the year, end of the quarter or something, you would have realized that you've pushed back so many things that stops you from progressing. And that momentum, I like to think about it like you're trying to climb uphill, Okay, this is a hill, and you're trying to climb uphill, and you're trying to push up this box. And every time you let something slip, okay, your box is gonna roll back. Okay, it's gonna keep rolling back. So maybe today you work really hard and you push it up one step. The next day, if you give up and say like, hey, I'm gonna let it, I'm gonna think about it for a little bit, what happens? It's gonna minus 2 steps, right? It's gonna roll back 2 steps. And the more that this happens, you're gonna find that at the end of it, your box is gonna start way back here and you haven't really learned anything. It becomes really hard to kind of build up that momentum again. So my advice here is that find a community, okay? Engage with them, learn from them, post questions, answer questions. It's gonna be really fun and it's gonna help you build that momentum. And after 6 months, maybe after a year, you would have realized that you've learned so many different things, not just on programming, but also about how you can work in a team, how you can work with other software engineers to produce and to make something meaningful. Okay, so those are my 5 tips. Just to summarize again, 1, software engineer is 1, pick a language, right? Pick a language. Could be Python, JavaScript, any language. I highly recommend Python because I think it's really easy. It reads like English. Okay, pick Python. Number 2, get a book. Okay, resource. Get a book to really learn that language well. Okay, so a book on Python. I'm gonna include some links in the description below so that you can learn Python really well. Number 3, pick a side project. Okay, something I want you to take away from this is build something small. Build a stool, right? Don't build a house. Don't build a house from the beginning. Pick something small. Pick something easy to start off with. Okay, could be building an API, building a diary, building a to-do list. Okay, any of these are fine. It gets your hands dirty and it's going to give you a lot of exposure to how modern software are being built. Number 4, learn data structures and algorithms. Okay, these are the foundations of computer science. Okay, it's going to help you learn how to write software that is highly performant, and it's going to help you when you start looking for jobs. 5, last but not least, find a community. Okay? Learning computer science, it's hard, it's lonely, it's not easy. But the good thing about computer science is that there are a lot of people trying to get into this field. So join those communities, right? Say hi, right? Join their communities, interact with them, engage with them, learn from them, most especially, and you want to build a lot of momentum. Okay, that's gonna help you that group, that sense of belonging, that community. It's going to help you progress, make progress in your learning, and also all of that learning you can share that later on with people who come after you. So win-win for everyone. And if you need some resources to find communities, there are a lot of Reddits that you can join. There's also Facebook groups that you can join. Stack Overflow, especially, I use that a lot, and I think it's a great space for a lot of people to learn about programming. So go on there, go check it out. Reddit, Facebook groups, Stack Overflow, sign up for an account, find your community, figure out which one sticks, and then you stay with them. Okay. All right. If you enjoyed this content, if you enjoyed this video, my name is Zia. I would love it if you leave a comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. All right. Bye-bye.